The story of Blackwood High's lockdown began long before that fateful day. The school, built in the early 1900s, had a dark history that few dare to speak about. It was rumored that the land it stood on was once a burial ground for an ancient tribe, and that the spirits of the dead had never truly left. Over the years, strange occurrences became part of the school's lore. Whispers in empty hallways, lockers slamming shut on their own, and the faint sound of children laughing when no one was around. But these were just stories, right? The morning of the lockdown started like any other. Students shuffled through the front doors, their backpacks slung over their shoulders, chatting about homework, weekend plans, and the upcoming Halloween dance. The air was crisp, and the trees surrounding the school were ablaze with autumn colors. But as the first bell rang, an uneasy feeling settled over the building. During second period, the first strange sound echoed through the halls. A low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The students in Mrs. Harper's English class froze, their pencils hovering above their papers. The growl was followed by heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate, as if something massive was prowling the hallway. Attention, students and staff, this is not a drill. Please remain in your classrooms. Lock all doors and windows. Do not leave under any circumstances. Mrs. Harper's face paled as she rushed to lock the door. The students exchanged nervous glances, their earlier laughter replaced by a tense silence. Outside, the hallway grew unnaturally quiet, as if the school itself was holding its breath. Minutes dragged by like hours. The lights flickered, and a cold draft swept through the room, despite the windows being tightly shut. Jake, a usually bold and outspoken student, pointed to the corner of the classroom. "Did you see that?" he whispered. "Something just moved." The others turned to look, but there was nothing there, only shadows that seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally. Then, a faint tapping sound began, like fingernails scratching against glass. It came from the window, but when they looked, there was no one outside. The tension in the room was suffocating. Sarah, a quiet girl who always sat in the back, clutched her desk, her knuckles white. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Before anyone could respond, the intercom crackled again. But this time, it wasn't the principal's voice. It was a deep, distorted growl, speaking in a language no one could understand. The sound sent chills down their spines. The lights flickered once more, and when they came back on, the door to the classroom was slightly ajar. Mrs. Harper gasped. "I locked that door," she said, her voice trembling. She rushed to close it, but before she could, something slammed against it from the outside, forcing it open with a deafening crash. The students screamed as a shadowy figure loomed in the doorway. It was tall and thin, with glowing red eyes and a mouth that stretched too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Its limbs were unnaturally long, and its movements were jerky and erratic, as if it didn't quite belong in this world. It let out a bone-chilling screech and lunged into the room. Chaos erupted. Students scrambled to the back of the classroom, overturning desks and chairs in their panic. Mrs. Harper stood frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror. The creature moved unnaturally fast, its limbs twisting and contorting as it advanced. It grabbed a desk and flung it across the room like it was made of paper. Sarah tripped and fell, her scream piercing the air as the creature turned its glowing eyes toward her. It let out a guttural laugh, its jagged teeth glistening as it reached for her. But just as its clawed hand was about to close around her arm, the lights went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. The students held their breath, listening to the sound of heavy footsteps and the creature's guttural growls. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature was gone. The lights flickered back on, revealing an empty classroom. The door was closed, and the hallway outside was silent. The students and Mrs. Harper sat in stunned silence, too afraid to move or speak. When the lockdown was finally lifted hours later, the school was swarming with police and paramedics. The principal was found unconscious in her office with no memory of what had happened. The students who had witnessed the creature were questioned, but their stories were dismissed as mass hysteria. In the days that followed, strange things continued to happen at Blackwood High. Students reported hearing whispers in empty classrooms, seeing shadowy figures in the corners of their vision, and feeling an icy presence whenever they walked the halls alone. The school tried to sweep the incident under the rug, but the rumors only grew. Some claimed the creature was a demon summoned by a cursed object buried beneath the school. Others believed it was the vengeful spirit of a student who had died under mysterious circumstances decades ago. A few even whispered that the school itself was alive, feeding on the fear of those who walked its halls. To this day, no one knows what truly happened during the lockdown at Blackwood High. The students who were there that day still carry the scars of their experience, and many refuse to speak about it. The school remains open, but the stories persist, passed down from one generation of students to the next. And if you ever find yourself walking the halls of Blackwood High after dark, you might just hear the faint sound of tapping on the windows, or the low, guttural growl of something waiting in the shadows. Some say the creature is still there, biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. So the next time you hear a strange noise in the hallway or feel an icy draft in a locked room, remember the story of Blackwood High and pray that the lights don't go out.